You know, for over 4,500 years, these things have literally stood against time itself, just casting these massive, long shadows across the Giza Plateau. So welcome to this explainer. I am beyond thrilled to be guiding you through this one today, because we are going to break down the actual facts behind arguably the most enduring mystery on Earth, the pyramids of Egypt. We're talking about monuments of solid stone that absolutely defy explanation, built by a civilization that just decided they wanted to touch the sky.
Okay, let's just dive right into it. When you look at these massive structures, what are we actually looking at? Are they just incredibly over-the-top tombs for dead kings? Are they ancient power plants, elaborate maps perfectly aligned with the stars? I mean, for centuries, people have thrown out literally every theory imaginable. But to truly wrap our heads around these incredible monuments, we've got to look at the facts. We need to go back to a time before Egypt even had pyramids, just to understand the ultimate problem they were trying to solve in the first place.
So let's look at ancient Egypt's, let's call it, startup problem. Before about 2700 BCE, kings were buried in these really humble, flat-roofed mud brick tombs called mastabas. But remember, the Egyptians believed their pharaoh was a living god. When he died, his ka, which is like his life force, needed a permanent physical home. Meanwhile, his ba, his soul, needed to travel way up into the stars to join Osiris. The catch here? If the physical body decayed, the ka had nowhere to live, and that meant no afterlife. So the tomb wasn't just a grave, right? They literally had to engineer a giant resurrection machine. The pyramid shape, which represented the rays of the sun god Ra, was essentially a massive stone launch pad for this soul.
And it's so cool to see how this builds over time. You don't just wake up one Tuesday and build a perfect pyramid. Back in 3100 BCE, we had those flat mud brick mastabas. But then, around 2670 BCE, an absolute genius enters the chat, Imhotep. He's actually the world's first named architect. Serving Pharaoh Djoser, Imhotep has this brilliant idea to just stack 6 mastabas on top of each other. Boom, you get the 62-meter step pyramid at Saqqara. It was the very first colossal stone building in human history. But as we're going to see, transitioning from a stepped pyramid to a smooth one, yeah, that was going to take a solid century of trial and error.
Talk about the ultimate learning curve in project management. Enter Pharaoh Snefru. This guy founded the 4th dynasty and was totally obsessed with pyramids. His first attempt, the medium pyramid, was a complete disaster. He tried to fill in the steps to make it smooth, but he built the outer casing on sand at this crazy steep 52-degree angle. It totally collapsed. Harsh lesson learned: do not build on sand. His second attempt, the bent pyramid, started at 54 degrees, but halfway up, his architects absolutely panicked when the structure started showing stress. They drastically shifted the angle to 43 degrees. Honestly, it's Egypt's most honest mistake, and you can still see it today. Finally, for his third super expensive beta test, the red pyramid, they cracked the code. By sticking to that 43-degree angle from the start, they finally built the very first successful, true, smooth-sided pyramid.
And all of Sneferu's stubborn persistence perfectly paved the way for our first major focus today. Section 1, Khufu's impossible monument. The most crucial point to grasp here is the sheer mind-boggling scale: 2.3 million. That is the estimated number of stone blocks used to build Khufu's Great Pyramid. And we aren't just talking about bricks here. These blocks weigh an average of 2.5 tons each. The entire structure weighs an unfathomable 6 million tons and originally soared to 146.6 meters. It is a monument of staggering, frankly almost intimidating proportions. Which brings us to an even wilder number, 5. To actually finish this colossal structure during Khufu's estimated 20-year reign, workers would have had to perfectly place one of those massive 2.5-ton blocks every 5 minutes. Seriously, think about that. Every 5 minutes, working 10 hours a day, 365 days a year, for 2 whole decades. And they pulled this off without wheels, without pulleys, and without a single iron tool. So naturally, when human beings are faced with an engineering feat that seems that impossible, our imaginations just run totally wild. The Greek historian Herodotus famously claimed it was built by 100,000 suffering slaves. And of course, more modern sci-fi myths suggest it must have been highly advanced lost technology or even, extraterrestrial visitors. So what's the deal? Did aliens or a brutalized slave workforce actually build this impossible monument?
No, absolutely not. And what's so amazing here is that the real, historical truth of how they pulled this off is actually so much cooler and way more impressive than any alien conspiracy theory out there.
Let's just look at the hard archaeological evidence.
We've actually found the worker villages. These guys weren't slaves. They were highly skilled, paid farmers who worked during the Nile flood season when they couldn't farm anyway. They had bakeries, breweries, and get this, advanced medical care. We found skeletons with cleanly healed broken bones. We've even found their team graffiti inside the pyramid, literally reading the Friends of Khufu gang. How relatable is that? Plus, there's a papyrus logbook found in 2013, the Diary of Mir, detailing exactly how they transported limestone by boat. This was cared for, highly organized professional labor.
But still, how do you move literal mountains without wheels? It came down to brilliant, low-tech ingenuity. They extracted these massive blocks and placed them onto huge wooden sleds. Now here is the absolute genius part. A worker would walk right in front of the sled, just pouring water onto the sand. That simple act reduces friction by up to 50%. It allowed a team of just 8 guys to haul a 2.5-ton block. To get them up the actual structure, the evidence strongly suggests they likely used spiraling internal ramps. This wasn't magic. It was the world's very first national project management system working at absolute peak efficiency.
Okay, I have to nerd out for a quick second here because the precision on this thing is just mind-blowing. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north within 0.05 degrees. Just for context, that's more accurate than the Paris Observatory. The base, which spans over 230 meters, is almost perfectly level, varying by only 4.4 centimeters across the whole thing. And yeah, people love to point out that the pyramid encodes the mathematical constants pi and phi, but the truth is they achieved this entirely naturally by using a standard Egyptian measurement for slope called a sect of 5.5. It's just an incredible testament to human skill and an insane amount of time using super basic tools like plumb bobs and set squares.
Let's journey inside, because the interior is just as captivating. You ascend through what's called the Grand Gallery, this towering yet somehow claustrophobic 28-meter-high corbelled hall. That leads you right into the King's Chamber, which is built with 80-ton red granite blocks that they had to bring from Aswan 800 kilometers away. Inside sits this massive granite sarcophagus. But here's the crazy mystery. The sarcophagus is wider than the doors, meaning they had to build the room around it during construction. Yet when it was finally opened, it was completely empty. Was Khufu ever even in there? We honestly don't know. Adding to all this mystique are these narrow little star shafts pointing directly from the chamber out to Orion's belt and Thuban, the ancient North Star. The pyramid might quite literally be a massive star clock.
But the story definitely doesn't end there. Which brings us to our next section, scaling the necropolis with Khafre and Menkaure.
So Khufu's successors basically expanded the family business into this meticulously planned city for the dead. Khufu's son, Khafre, built the second pyramid. Now, Khafre was pretty clever. His pyramid actually looks taller than his father's, but that's totally an illusion. He just built it on slightly higher ground. Khafre is also the pharaoh who gave us the magnificent 73-meter Great Sphinx. But then we look at Khufu's grandson, Menkaure. His pyramid is a drastic reduction, standing at only 65 meters tall. While his complex gave us some of the most stunning art of the era, this dramatic shrinking in size is a massive historical clue. It really hints at an empire that was beginning to run out of steam and, more importantly, run out of resources.
So why did this golden age of pyramids just stop? The answer is climate change. Right around 2200 BCE, climate data shows a devastating 30-year mega-drought hit the region. The life-giving Nile floods just failed. Without crops, you have severe famine. Without food, there are no taxes. And the royal pyramid building budget just completely evaporates. This triggered the total collapse of the Old Kingdom into a chaotic era we call the First Intermediate Period. Now, later pharaohs in the Middle Kingdom did try to reboot pyramid building, but they were pretty strapped for cash. They had to use cheap mud brick cores, and sadly, almost all of those have completely collapsed into ruin today. Plus, there was a really harsh practical lesson to be learned here. By the time of the New Kingdom, around 1550 BCE, pharaohs like Tutankhamun had just completely abandoned pyramids altogether. They realized a simple, brutal truth. If you build a giant rob me sign, you are absolutely going to get robbed. I mean, no matter how many heavy granite plugs or fake traps you engineer, a 146-meter glowing white beacon in the middle of the desert is going to attract tomb raiders. So they decided to move their burials entirely underground into the hidden Valley of the Kings.
But honestly, the legacy of what happened at Giza is practically immortal. We know for a fact humans can do it. Back in 1997, a NOVA experiment proved that just 12 guys with ropes could effectively pull a 2-ton block right up a ramp.
The scale remains totally mind-bending. When Napoleon visited, he did the math and calculated that the Giza pyramids contain enough stone to build a 3-meter-high wall entirely around the entire country of France. And today, these structures draw 14.7 million tourists every single year. Human ingenuity, sweat, and organization genuinely, successfully defeated time.
And if you're sitting there thinking we finally figured it all out, think again. Just when we thought the Great Pyramid had given up all its secrets, modern tech flipped the script. In 2017, scientists using muon tomography, literally scanning the pyramid using cosmic rays from space, discovered a massive, completely undiscovered 30-meter void sitting right above the Grand Gallery. Nobody has been inside this space for 4,500 years. We have no idea what it is. Is it just a structural relief chamber to take weight off the roof? Is it a hidden tomb? Could it be the true, untouched resting place of Khufu himself? It just goes to show that these monuments are still speaking to us, still challenging everything we think we know. They prove that a civilization armed with nothing but copper tools and sheer human will could literally touch the sky. So as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with this one thought. What other secrets are still hidden inside, just waiting in the dark to make us look up and wonder all over again?